Hello, everyone. Welcome to Food Integrity Now. I'm Carol Grieve, and I'm the host of the show. I'm really excited today to introduce my guest, Zen Honeycutt. And before she comes on, I'd like to give you a little bit of information about her. Zen Honeycutt is an international speaker and the founding executive director of Moms Across America. This national coalition of unstoppable moms has been in the forefront of raising awareness about the global impact of GMOs and glyphosate for 10 years. Zen instigated the first consumer-funded glyphosate testing in America and is the author of Unstoppable: Transforming Sickness and Struggle into Triumph, Empowerment, and Celebration of Community. Today, we're going to be talking with Zen about her newest initiative, the Neighborhood Food Network. Welcome, Zen.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you to all your listeners. I'm delighted to be with you.
Well, we are delighted to have you, and I'm so excited about this initiative you've started. So let's just get started. What and why did you create the Neighborhood Food Network?
Well, first of all, I have been inspired by so many people who have posted homesteading videos and gardening videos. I've been sort of dreaming, I think, like many people for years now, about growing my own food, going to the Heirloom Festival by Baker Creek in California. I'm seeing farmers, right? I've been kind of a wannabe farmer for a long time. So I've been learning about growing food, but I haven't been doing too much of it, over the past maybe 5 years, just a little bit of a backyard gardening. So I've been interested in it. But recently, when I was thinking about the Neighborhood Crime Watch program, your listeners are probably aware of that. And this is a program, I believe it's like a federal program. And if you gather at least one representative from 50% of the households on your street, then you tell your police department and the police will come out and educate you and your neighbors about preventing crime in your neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And I thought this was, I initiated this in my local neighborhood back in Mission Viejo in California when I lived there. And it was a really good, very informative program. They also told you about getting prepared for an emergency and how you have to have 2 weeks worth of water and food and, all of that. We talked about those things. So that was sort of the inspiration as far as the structure goes. And I thought of that program. I was like, what if we had a program like that for food? For growing food and securing local food security in case of a crisis or not, in case of just people want to get connected and, connect with community and grow their own food and have a healthier food supply. So we're calling it the Neighborhood Food Network. And the idea is to get together as many of your neighbors as possible. There's no requirements, right, for 50% or more or anything, and have a gathering. And first of all, just meet and greet each other. Just get to know each other because so many people don't know their neighbors. And if you can do it around food, make it an organic potluck or, maybe just have, breakfast and bagels or something, but get together and get to know your neighbors and then eventually talk about who's growing what and how much food you need to grow to have food security on your street, how many pounds of potatoes or tomatoes or whichever, and also where you can source food from locally. So where could you get, if you wanted to go in together on a cow or a pig, if you eat meat, right? Where could you source your food from locally? Where could you source your eggs and milk from locally? Because a lot of people may not know that they could get food from a farm, a couple miles away. And they just are familiar with going to their local grocery store. But in a time of, power grid shutdown or, weather incidents or all of these other types of looming crises that are being predicted, which may or may not happen, really the only way we're going to survive is if we have access to local food. So it really would behoove us to sort of just plan for the worst, but expect the best in each other, which is to rise up and to be compassionate and connected and in partnership. And I have to say, one of the other stats that sort of inspired me was when I heard that it only takes 9 missed meals for a person to resort to violence to feed their family. That's only 3 days. So that sort of got my butt in gear to think about, how much food do we have on hand, right? Where would we get our food if the grocery stores, if all the power is out in the grocery stores? So in that instance, we don't want to be enemies, or we don't want to have our neighbors be a threat. We want to be connected with our neighbors and working in partnership. So that's what we're doing. We're planting a seed like a fruit tree, it takes 7 years before you can pretty much expect fruit from it, from some types of trees. We know this is going to take time, but we're planting the seed now for a thriving, community with access to healthy, local, non-GMO, organically grown food.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, so you have been growing food on your farm for how long? Can you just share with us a little bit about your journey of living kind of in the city and doing a backyard thing, and then you chose to do something different? Because I just think it's a great story and people might be interested.
Thank you. Well, I grew up in Connecticut where we did have a garden, but I wasn't very involved. So I was aware of, what it was like to go out and pick snow peas and all that. Then I moved to New York City, no garden, obviously 100% dependent upon the restaurants and the grocery stores. Then I lived in Southern California for 20 years, but only in the last year or two did we have a little backyard garden with 4 raised beds. And we grew probably like 40 heads of romaine lettuce at the time when everybody else's romaine lettuce had E. coli on it. Remember that?
Yeah.
And so we were eating romaine lettuce and my kids were like selling it at school to their friends. We had so much of it. So we had a fun experience with 4 raised beds and growing, spinach and kale and romaine lettuce and arugula and, a bunch of different greens. That was fun. We did that for about a year, maybe a year and a half. And the next house we moved to had a very tiny backyard and really couldn't grow much of anything. So we moved here to North Carolina and to a 6-acre farm about a year and a half ago, and have been growing. First, we started about 1,000 square foot garden, and now we have about 5,000 square feet. Wow. So we have a cornfield and potatoes and sweet potatoes and melons and cantaloupe and cucumbers growing, and all kinds of greens and vegetables. And we're growing 2 different kinds of corn, some blue corn, and we're growing them separately from each other because we don't want them to cross pollinate. And then also some sweet corn. And we had our first sweet corn this week. So
how did it turn out?
Really delicious. Yes, very delicious. And one of my sons was particularly happy to be involved in that because I asked him to make sure that they got pollinated, where you take the tassel at the top and you rub it on the silks, because every single one of those silks is connected to a kernel. So they all need to be pollinated. And the reason why we did that was because we were growing a 3 sisters garden where there were 3 or 4 stalks on a mound. So not like a big clump of, rows and rows of corn all together that would naturally pollinate each other. We wanted to make extra sure that they were pollinating. And so we did that. And the 3 sisters garden is when the corn grows on the mound and the green beans grow up the corn, and then the squash grows out around the mound, keeping predators away, like raccoon, because they don't like the squash, like the little prickly parts in the leaves. And the beans put nitrogen in the soil, and the corn supplies the trellis for the beans. So they all work together like a community, and it's a very cool part of the garden.
Well, that's great. So let's talk a little bit about the logistics of doing this and, how you set it up and what people can learn from what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah. It may sound daunting to people to get to know their neighbors and to invite them, to do this. But I would invite you to just start to get to meet your neighbors first, invite them to come to a meeting about the Neighborhood Food Network. And we have on our website on neighborhoodfoodnetwork.com, a place that says resources, and it'll say flyers and brochures. And you can download, the invitation. We have them in black and white or color. If you want to spend a little bit more money on color flyers, you can download those. And we invite you to first, just invite them. There's also one for an emergency, like email network. So if you want to first just get connected with your neighbors and invite them to all be connected by email, we have a little flyer for that. And then you can invite them to actually come to a meeting in person. And there's a flyer for that. And then there's also a first meeting outline. So, the types of things you may want to cover in your first meeting, what to talk about, getting to know each other, maybe what types of skills would you be able to donate to the community? Like if somebody's a plumber or an electrician, it would be great to know that, right?
Yeah.
And to support each other. So we have the outline for invitations and for the first meeting, and then also information on so you can sort of plug in or estimate how much food you would need for your community when you get to that point of state of planning. Now, this is the pilot year, so we're working things out. If you have suggestions on how it should go, we are really happy to, get feedback from people, what things might want to be changed, how the flyers might want to be tweaked, or, information like that. So for now, we have the invitations on how to get started, and we have a weekly call on Monday nights at 8:30 for about an hour. And sometimes we have, most of the times we have an expert on.
And you're on
Eastern
time.
Yeah, sorry, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. And so 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. And we, most of the calls, we have an expert that can answer questions, that will talk about a specific thing. Like, for instance, how to grow tomatoes or how to start a compost. This past week, we talked about how to harvest and cure potatoes, onions, and garlic.
Wow.
So, because those are the things that are in season right now. So we got some good questions cleared up, and some, probably hopefully gave people support to avoid those same mistakes that Anne and I have made. Anne is the program manager. She was really my inspiration as far as a gardener goes in starting the program too. She used to text me lots of pictures of her tomatoes and then her sauces and, her garden, things like that. So we are kind of cohorts in the good kind of crime, which is growing your own food and getting free from this toxic, opting out of this toxic food system, and being more self-sufficient. So that's the program for right now.
That's fantastic. And I know that you want to make sure that people know they don't need to live on a farm to do this. They could
Absolutely
have a balcony growing something.
Yes,
so,
absolutely. And we plan to focus more as the program progresses, especially in the fall and the winter times. Like, what can you do? What can you grow inside? What can you grow on rooftops? What can you grow on balconies? I mean, there are people who have wall gardens in their home, the wall that's facing a window, right? They make that whole wall an herb garden. That you absolutely can do this with a very small amount of space. And you can grow trees, miniature dwarf lemon trees and fig trees and all kinds of fruit trees in pots on your balcony. So there's a lot of ways to grow food. And we understand that it may not give a family all the food they need, obviously, but any type of fresh local food that you can grow in your on your home or balcony or rooftop or whichever, will absolutely make you healthier, because you will be getting nutrients right when you pick it. Most of the food that is in a grocery store that has traveled 3,000 miles, and is weeks, days, or months, even days old, but months old in some cases, is almost devoid of the essential nutrients that we need to do things like fight cancer and, develop our bodies and be healthy. So
viruses and all of
that. Yeah. You really want to have food as fresh as possible in order to get those nutrients. And so don't think that if you're just going to grow a couple pots of tomatoes, that's not a big deal. It is a big deal. You're getting fabulous nutrients for your body.
So what do you do when people say, I absolutely can't grow food, but I want to be a part of this? What do you do with those people?
So we invite them to be a part of the Neighborhood Food Network, which is why we didn't call it the Neighborhood Grow Network, because it's about food. It's not about just growing. We invite them to be a part by maybe being the people to resource those local small farms, getting together a list, maybe doing a little research on the internet, or calling local farms, and just finding out where, what type of produce do they have, or what type of meat or eggs or dairy do they have? How can somebody get access to that? And making a list for your neighbors. Here's the closest local farms. And in case of, a crisis, or if you just want to support local farms, here's a great list of local farmers.
Yeah.
Yeah. They could also donate their front yard or backyard, right? They could do like a crop share. They could donate, newspapers or cardboard for, garden beds to lay down, to prevent weeds. They could donate their coffee grinds. They could be the ones to buy the seeds, if they have money, but they don't have the capability of gardening. They could be the ones to donate the seeds to their community. We recommend Baker Creek heirloom seeds. And we actually have a special initiative with them right now. The people who sign up with the Neighborhood Food Network to be a host, not just to get the newsletter, but the ones to be a host, will get a free pack of seeds from Baker Creek. And you'll be able to give those out to people at your meetings. And some are coming your way, Carol, because we're going to talk about your meeting. Yeah. So we have a deal with them. So there's a lot of things that they can do. They can donate to support the cause. Yeah.
Great. Well, I started a neighborhood food network here. And what I did to start it is I live in a community of ranches with where a lot of people are already growing their food, a lot.
That's
So
great.
I started a Facebook page called Plateau Neighborhood Food Network because we live on a plateau. And I started it 3 days ago, 3 or 4 days ago, and we already have 40 members.
Wow.
And so this is just one example. This is my community. It's going to be different in every community. But what we're doing is a lot of people up here, maybe they're only, growing. Like yesterday, I went and picked apples, peaches, nectarines, and where people just say, come take it. We have way too much. And, we don't know what to do with all this. So that kind of thing is happening there.
Yay. That's great. And these are just neighbors of yours where you're going to their property and picking.
Within a 3-mile radius of where I live. So, yesterday somebody said, here's the gate code, go in and pick. Our dogs are friendly. So it's really fun too. It's kind of fun to pick fruit, and it doesn't take that long. And today I'll be doing canning. But I love what the Neighborhood Food Network has really inspired me. And I never knew how to can. And actually, this is going to be my first canning project today. But I'm going to be with somebody that has done it before. And we're learning, but you offer tips on those kind of things on the Neighborhood Food Network. So
yes, it's in progress. I don't know how much we have up on canning yet because we're almost there. We're not quite there yet with that season. I think you're a little early because you're in California. But we are getting up canning right now. We have the harvesting and the curing. I think we have some canning information, some dehydrating. Anne is also gathering up information on freeze drying. So yeah, we planned and intend to have all of those resources up there with links to videos and, directions and even recipes. Eventually, we'd love it if people would send in their photos and recipes and photos of your garden and all of that. Yes, we intend it to be all free as well. So we would appreciate donations. If people could do $3 or $5 a month, it would be very, very helpful for us in getting the information out. But we intend for it to all be free so that people can have access to this from, all walks of life.
That's great. Another thing that we're doing is because a lot of people have surplus, like we did, like we picked our patty pan squash, which was the first to come up, and we had so much of it. So we put that on there. And so we did our first trade. We had tomatoes. We had one tomato plant that produced about 80 pounds of tomatoes.
What?
It was insane. It was a yellow tomato. I don't know if it wasn't started from seed. My the owner of the property where I live planted it. But so we met somebody at just, the mailboxes, and they came with Meyer lemons and plums, and we traded. And it was great. So I think in our neighborhood, we're going to be doing a lot of trading. I have this, and on the Facebook page, somebody will say, "Oh, I have this, but does anybody have avocados?"
Yes.
And we can trade. So that's the way we're doing it. And again, we're just getting started, but I'm really glad I asked you the question about people who aren't growing food, because that has come up and we haven't really addressed that yet, how we're going to handle that. We don't want to turn people away.
Yeah. Oh, they could trade coffee grounds, right? They could trade newspapers, they could trade seeds, they could trade manure. I mean, if they have horses that they're feeding organic food, that manure is very useful, right? Or chickens or rabbits. They could absolutely be a part of it. And and give, resources as well. Maybe they want to be the ones to sign up for a membership with, I don't know, the Farmer's Almanac and share information. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways that you could contribute to the group. So that's a great idea that you are looking for how you can include them.
Yes, and the owner of the property, her name's Teresa. She had an idea too. Somebody said, "Oh, could I just buy some squash from you?" And we knew this person, and we knew she was a baker, and so Teresa said, "Well, could you bake some delicious gluten-free something, and I'll trade." So the
That's
point
great.
is the point is get creative. And what I really love about it is that it creates such community, and the fact that it really does turn all your neighbors into your allies, just in case there was a major food shortage.
Absolutely.
You'd have
Yes.
somewhere to go.
Yes. And you do. And people are much less likely to want to, commit crime or rob your home, if they know you, and vice versa. I mean, you're going to be working together on whatever, crisis you're facing, or, weather issue or whatever it is. You'll be working together on that. And the other thing I love is that it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican or some other party. If you're sharing food, you're just being compassionate and generous, and it really cultivates a wonderful sense of community, bringing people together and, bridging that divide, which a lot of us have been experiencing. So I think it's about time. I think there's like people are excited about this because they're done with being holed up. They're done with being closed off. They're done with division. They want to connect. People really want, authenticity right now. They want something that's real, and that they want to be able to see people in person and look at them eye to eye and connect with them. We're doing this with screens now, and I'm so glad I can see you, but it really makes a difference when it's somebody in person, that you can talk to. Yeah.
Well, and there's many ways you can get the word out. You can print a flyer and get it to your neighbors. But something I'm doing tomorrow in my community is we have a monthly luncheon. It's the ladies' luncheon in our neighborhood. And we usually have about 50, it's a potluck.
Right.
I wish it was 100% organic, but I'm working on that. I'm going to, the organizer, I asked her if I could have 5 minutes, and because we do announcements. So I'm going to bring this sign-up sheet. And I want to create that also because, I created a Facebook page. Not everybody's on Facebook. And so we want to create an email list where people can exchange and stuff too. So
that's fantastic. I love that you created a Facebook page. It wasn't something that we suggested because we were thinking too that not everybody's on Facebook. But hey, if 60% of the people in your group are, then that's a great way to connect with people.
And
it doesn't have to be everybody.
When you do a group, you may know this, a private group, you make it visible, but you can also ask some questions before they, like, what neighborhood do you live in, or do you grow organically, or, you can kind of, kind of set the tone for what you're all about. So,
great.
I guess my point is there's just many ways to do this.
Yes.
But you have created such structure for people that it's just fantastic. If they don't have ideas of their own, they're going to get on your site and they're going to get a lot of great ideas
thank you.
of how to make this work. And so how long can people expect if they get on at 5:30 Pacific time and 8:30 Eastern time on Monday nights? How long does the meeting last?
So usually the expert's usually only on for half an hour. So from that 5:30 to 6:00 Pacific time, we'd have the expert. And then if if that's all that you have time for, that's great. But a lot of time are the people on the call, which could be anywhere from 35 to 100 people across the country. They have things they want to share. They have questions they want to ask, and they want to share recipes, or one gentleman shared how to grow microgreens on one of the last calls. And, for people who don't have big gardens, right? Like, so there are people that come on the calls that are just naturally a wealth of information, And we want to hear from people. We want to exchange those ideas, and we want to let people ask questions. So it usually goes until 9:30. So from 8:30 to 9:30, or 5:30 to 6:30. So usually about an hour.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that people can ask questions, and you have a whole group to support those answers. And because we're getting some questions on our page, and I am by no means a gardening expert. It takes time.
It takes time. Yeah.
We planted tomatillos in a greenhouse. Can you see the problem there?
No, because I've never grown tomatillos. So see, I'm not an expert either.
Tomatillos are not like tomatoes. You can't just shake them and they pollinate. You either have to hand pollinate every single bloom, or have bees in there. And we can't leave our doors open because we have peacocks who would love to eat our greenhouse. So these plants got huge, and then the little tomatillo paper shell, I go, oh, they're on there. Nothing inside.
Oh, they weren't fertilized or pollinated.
Pull them all out. So it's a learning
yes,
curve.
It is a learning curve. Yes. Yeah. I learned, like, from when I planted the Three Sisters garden on the mounds, I put just one corn seed in each hole, and not all of them sprouted. Right. So on some of the mounds, there's only one corn stalk or two. We wanted 4 so that they would more easily pollinate each other. So now I've learned I've got to put at least 2 seeds in each hole, so that you definitely get germination. And so there's a lot of things we've learned along the way, which we are really working to support people along the way as well. We have a link to, there's one part on our website under, I believe it's planning, where you can click on your zone, your garden zone. For those of you who are listening, we have several different garden zones in the United States. I think it ranges from 3 to 9, something like, or 3 to 7, and different garden zones for different, regions of the neighborhood. And you can click on that and automatically add the planting tips per month on the first day of the month to your entire Google Calendar or your entire Outlook calendar. So we've had a volunteer go in and enter in all of the tips. So for instance, if it would say on July 1st, on the 1st of July, there'll be an event in your calendar, and it'll say in July, you can plant, start seeds indoors for, broccoli or cabbage or cauliflower or whatever. And you can plant outside, warm weather, lettuce, and, different things like that. Right. So it'll say what you can do in that month as a reminder. Cause I don't know about you, the biggest problem I have with gardening is, the mistakes that I make are not doing things when you're supposed to do them. For me, it's not as much how you're supposed to do them, because some of that is pretty easy to follow the directions. You put it in soil, or you water it, that kind of thing. But it's the timing for me. I miss out, like, oh, darn it, I could have planted my potatoes a month ago, that kind of thing. So for me, having those reminders is really important. So we have a feature now on our website where you can just plug that in, and every month on the 1st of the month, that event will show up and tell you what you should be doing that month. And, links to, planning out your garden, and, companion planting. Yes, we have a great pest control page put up there, again, by Anne, the program manager. She's been gardening for probably, 5 or 7 years. And we have a page up there for pest control and weed management as well. And she's got tips. We promote all natural, non-toxic methods. Exactly. So that work too, that really work. So we have methods up there that really work. And we have tips from other people that maybe we haven't tried that they say work. So, where we're taking some people's, they're taking them on their word. And so we have a couple different options of weed control, like Contact Organics, although that's not available in California right now. Avenger is available in California. There's, vinegar-based options, mulch, hand pulling, using, thick straw, things like that. We try to promote all of the non-toxic methods.
Beneficial or natural predators to
beneficial bugs. Thank you for the reminder. We've got to put the link up for Rincon Ventova. They were one of the first supporters of Moms Across America when we were marching in parades 10 years ago. And they have beneficial bugs. So you can buy bugs.
I think that's where we got ours, because we're not having any problems with bugs outside in the outside gardens, but since I live in warm climate in Southern Cal,
Mhm.
we're having issues in the greenhouse where we got white flies, and those are hard to get rid of,
Yeah,
and
I've heard they're really hard.
aphids. And
Yeah.
now we have 3 greenhouses. In the second greenhouse, we have yellow jackets.
Those
And
sting. Yeah.
so it's always a learning curve.
Yep.
What do we
Mhm.
do for this? And I think one of the things we're learning is don't grow a whole lot in the greenhouse in the summer, because you got all of this land outside,
Yeah.
and it's just different than growing in the
Yeah, I
greenhouse.
think there's only a few crops that are real good in the greenhouse, like the tomatoes and the peppers. I think
Yeah,
everything else is kind of too hot for them.
yeah.
So, but the greenhouse is very beneficial in the winter and the
Oh yeah,
fall, isn't it?
I
I mean,
had greens, and I will say that my kale is still in the greenhouse. I planted that kale in late September.
mhm,
So that kale has really gone 9 to 10 months.
that's great.
And
Well,
it's
it'll
and
go
it's
2 years if you let it. You don't have to pull it up when it gets brown. It'll come back.
Okay, see, I learned
Yes.
something new
Yeah.
just then.
It's called a
Because
biannual. Yeah, yeah. So it'll come back, and yeah, and a lot of lettuces will sort of seed themselves. You get volunteer tomato plants all the
oh, we get
time.
we get
Yeah.
volunteers all over the place, and it's my understanding that the volunteer plants can be even healthier because they've had to struggle
That
to
makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, I've
Yep.
heard that. So I don't know if that's true, but it sounds true. So
Well, I heard
anyway,
that I heard they did some testing on plants that have gotten eaten by bugs, that have a few holes in it. So lettuce or kale, that leaf of lettuce is going to be higher in antioxidants than a plant that has not gotten eaten by bugs, because it's got a defense mechanism, right, from being eaten, and it boosts up its antioxidants. So if you have vegetables in your gardens that have a few bites from the bugs, those are going to be the healthiest ones to eat.
I know why that is too, because it really makes a lot of sense, because when they're eating, they
Mhm.
produce more, they're being eaten on, they produce
Mhm.
more phytonutrients.
That's what, okay, phytonutrients, yes, and
Phytonutrients,
antioxidants, yeah.
because they have to, that's their natural defense. And
Mhm.
so you get the benefit of that. So
Yes,
that makes total sense. So
yeah,
gardening can be really exciting, sometimes
Mhm.
frustrating,
Yes,
but
yeah.
I guarantee you'll always learn something.
Yes, you are always learning something, and I think that's what I love most about it is, I came from a very comfortable lifestyle in Southern California. I was not in a place like where you are with ranches. I was in suburbia with tiny backyards and next to a beautiful park, but you couldn't interact with that park in any way other than walking through it. You know what I mean? You couldn't
Right.
plant things and grow things and dig holes or climb trees or anything. So, living where we're living now, there's such an opportunity to learn new things every day, and yeah, make a lot of mistakes, which is really the only way you learn. So, we have a list of projects and things that we just plan them out over time. I try to say, okay, this one project is what we'll get done this week or, this weekend as a family. And I try not to be overwhelming about it. I have high expectations, but I keep trying to, tamper those a bit so that people don't get stressed out, because you want it to be fun too. You
Right.
really do want it to be fun. But they're definitely our kids are learning, our family's learning that it's not all about convenience though. I mean, if it's going to
Yeah.
rain and you've got to harvest something before it rains or plant something before it rains, you drop everything, right? Dinner waits, the TV show or whatever you were watching waits, and you go do that. So Mother Nature does not mess around and will not wait for you. And so there are times when you just got to do what you got to do. And if the weeds are overgrowing something, if you want all your work for planting that crop to come to fruition, you've got to weed around it and make sure you fertilize it and take care of it. So the kids are learning a greater sense of responsibility and appreciation for nature, and also appreciation for animal life. We have rabbits in order to have beneficial rabbit fertilizer, which is the best fertilizer because it's the highest in magnesium and potassium, and it's a cold manure, meaning you don't have to have it sit and compost for 6 months like you do with horse manure or
Mhm.
chicken manure. Um, so you can use it right away, and it's very beneficial. And so they're learning to take care of rabbits and chickens. We also have goats, And so learning something new all the time.
Yeah,
It's
it's so
really
great to
fun.
get the kids involved. So
Yeah.
anyway, well, I'm really glad that you came on the show today. I mean, I learned something new. I always learn something new from you, Zen. And
You too, Carol.
the neighborhood food network is just been a fantastic idea. And
Oh,
I think
great.
it's really going to be taking off, especially, as we're experiencing right now, some food shortages.
Mhm.
I have a feeling that we may experience more. I'm never a
Yeah.
doom and gloom person, but I want to make sure that I'm prepared.
Yeah. You know what? It's just smart to be prepared. It's
Yeah.
just like
For
you,
any kind of disaster,
yeah,
fire,
it's like, I mean, for me, it's like sometimes when I go shopping and I see nice little hostess gifts, I'm like, I know I'm going to be invited somewhere soon. That looks like a great little hostess gift. I'm going to keep a couple of those on hand. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
like you can prepare for good things too, right? And this is
yeah,
preparing for a situation when you just we're being told this is probably going to happen, and so it's a good idea to be prepared. But let's have fun with it in the meantime. And I have to
yeah.
say, I had so much fun when I had invited my group. I didn't have as large a turnout that you have right now. I had about 7 people at our last meeting.
Great.
But 2 of the neighbors have alpacas, which are like giant teddy bears. They're so cute.
Yeah, we
And
have
he
those
wants
here.
to put a neighborhood food network stand out. So for free food, to put out seeds or extra squash on a little stand under a tree on a hill that's right near a church. And so we're asking the church if we can, put that stand on their property, and we would manage it and take care of it, and have this, church put a sign up and say, when their meetings are and things like that. So it'd be beneficial for everybody. So that's one thing that one of our neighbors came up with for an idea. And another lady that's starting this, I think she's in Washington State. She's a grandma named Mona. And one of the things they're doing is they're having cooking recipes out of their food and sharing them, so they're having a little gathering where they're bringing food from their garden, and, somebody wants to play music and that kind of thing, so like you said, there's many ways to do this. And we would love to hear the feedback from people that, you did this thing and it worked really great, and somebody else did something else and that worked great. And we can assemble all of those ideas, and then hopefully, really kick this off in a bigger way next year for spring planting season, and have hopefully hundreds or thousands, being started across the nation. That would
Yeah.
be so exciting, wouldn't
That
it?
would be exciting. Yeah.
That'd
And
be
I
so
really
great.
think it's going to happen.
Me
So
too.
Zen, thanks for being a guest, and just give the website again,
Sure.
and the Moms Across America
Sure.
website.
Yeah. Moms Across America is the parent sort of group of this group, at Neighborhood Food Network is on its own. It focuses only on food, and it's neighborhoodfoodnetwork.com. And our meetings are Monday night at 5:30 Pacific time, PM, and 8:30 Eastern time. And in order to get that invitation for those calls, we ask you to sign up on the Neighborhood Food Network to get the email, the newsletter alert. There's a separate link if you want to sign up to be a host. So just make sure you sign up for both if you want to do both. And we really thank you very much for the opportunity to share about this, and for everybody who wants to join in or just come and check us out. We
Yeah.
welcome you.
And Just get started,
Yes,
just
absolutely.
get
Have fun
started.
growing food.
So thank you to all of our listeners. I know you got some valuable information today, and I wanted to share that I am now doing a nutrition support group. I'm doing it on the first and third Wednesday of every month. And the next one is this Wednesday at 5:30 Pacific time. And you can go to foodintegritynow.org and click on classes and get all the information. So I'm really excited about that, and supporting people on their health journey. So
Fantastic. I'm so glad you're doing that, Carol. Thank you
yeah,
so
I
much.
love it. It's just, it's my cocaine.
That's great. That's great. Gets you jazzed up and
Gets me
raring to
going.
go.
So I hate
That's
to use
great.
that as an example, but you know
Yeah.
what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So thank you, Zen, and
Yep.
we appreciate all the great work you're doing.
Mhm.
And go sign up for the neighborhoodfoodnetwork.com.
Thank you so much, Carol. Thank you,
Okay,
everybody. Take
take
care.
care.